5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to a rather chilly Las Vegas. The sun set here about 4 hours ago or so, and the temperature has dipped to a chilly 9 degrees. Okay, not quite as cold as the UK at the moment, but it's meant the drivers have still been feeling the cold on what has been a busy media day here. And it's cold enough as well for us to have retired into one of the hospitality units designed and designated for the media. They've been supplying us with coffee and treats, so that'll help us get through the podcast this evening. And there are lots of big stories to get through over the course of this show. We're going to talk about, of course, the driver's title. Lando Norris, has he got one hand on the Champions Trophy? Or did we see some green shoots from Oscar Piastri in Brazil? We're going to hear from both McLaren drivers a little later on. And what about the weather then? I've told you it's chilly. We are expecting some rain as well. We've never had a wet race here in Vegas, so could that spice things up? Well, my name is Rosanna Tennant, and joining me, my fellow Las Vegans this evening are Andrew Chips Benson, Alice Jackpot Powell, and Harry Craps Benjamin. It's a very good evening, guys.
I like my name.
Wow,
Harry's been a bit done over there, but it's good.
Straight to deep pole and get that sorted, guys. We've been so lucky. We came out here a few days earlier than we really needed to for a bit of team bonding. We headed out to the Grand Canyon. Everyone enjoy their experience of taking in the sights of what Nevada and Arizona have to offer.
I thoroughly loved it. It's great. It was a long time spent in the car, but we got our steps in, didn't we? Up and down the canyon.
We had to speak to each other, so that was a bit painful. But apart from that, it was great.
It was pretty amazing, wasn't it?
It was
getting
amazing.
out there?
It's quite as hard to take in, isn't it, Benny, with your own eyes when you get to the canyon?
Yeah, but the wow moment for me was Alice's driving in the rain on the way back on the motorway. Thank
Even
God it was
Harry
her
couldn't keep
driving,
up
not
with
me.
Yeah,
The weather, the aquaplaning, it was proper racing driver skill on that one.
Yeah, always nice to have a professional racing driver in our midst to take control when it really matters. It was mind-blowing, and what a place to record our 5 things to watch out for the weekend.
Absolutely, and I hope we all enjoyed 10 seconds of Andrew Benson on our social media feeds. So I think that was my highlight of our Grand Canyon
I've heard
visit.
they want more. They want more.
More Benny.
More. No, sorry. So let's talk about Vegas. We are now back in Sin City, entertainment capital of the world. There's always been so much hype around this race. This is the 3rd time we've come back in the modern day era of Formula One. Does it already have an iconic status, Harry, would you say? Is it right up there?
I think it is. I mean, look, it's an event race. It's a spectacle, isn't it? It's actually, quite frankly, ridiculous that it's even allowed to have Formula One cars racing, at over 200 miles per hour down a part of the strip. I mean, that is a joke that they could be able to do that, passing the Venetian and all these amazing, iconic landmarks of Vegas. So that is amazing. So for that reason alone, it makes it iconic.
Andrew, what about you? It's always a hard sell with Benny. What are you feeling about this race now? You've had a few stabs at it.
Well, I think, I feel the same way as most of the drivers do. It's not the greatest racetrack in the world, and it's not none of their favourite tracks, that's for sure. But when it first started, I was lucky enough to go and stand on one of the sort of corporate hospitality stands along the strip. And there's a spot where you can see, you've got Paris on one side, the Bellagio behind you, and Caesar's Palace to the whichever side it is.
It's a bit discombobulating, isn't it? Let's be honest.
I found myself, I was at the time I was sort of buying into Max Verstappen's claim that it was, more show than race, basically. But standing there, I thought it was a view to rival the Monaco Harbour in terms of, the sort of the wow effect that it had. And I think that's the point about this race. There's lots of things that are not great about it. The timetable's not great for us. It's on at 4 o'clock in the morning in the UK, just like Melbourne is. We're effectively on Japanese time here, even though we're on the sort of Pacific time in Las Vegas.
You love the Japanese time, don't you, Benny?
But, it's Formula One cars, as Harry says, going down the strip, and the spectacle of it is mind-blowing. There's no other word for it.
Benny says he feels a bit like how the F1 drivers have been feeling. As a driver, Alice, does this circuit get you excited? Are there challenges out there that make it a fun one to drive?
I actually think probably the biggest challenge is the weather and the temperature, how cold. We don't go to any Grand Prix where it gets about 5 degrees at night time, and we're racing at night time. And we're sat here with our hats and our coats on. I can't think of another Grand Prix, maybe Silverstone, where I'd take my coat and my hat just to keep dry in the rain.
If you're lucky in the British summer, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the biggest challenge for the drivers, is purely making sure they get these tyres in the correct window, because it's so difficult, and we will talk about it on the commentary over the weekend. Plenty of people will get it wrong, and we'll hear from some interviews, I'm sure, over the weekend where they'll say, just didn't get the tyres into the right window, just didn't fire the tyres up, I had cold graining. So, and we don't really talk about that much. So I think for that, it is a big challenge for the drivers.
And if it rains, it's going to be a completely different beast as well. Drivers talking about the white lines being really slippy, something I hadn't really appreciated. But it'll change dramatically if we do get wet weather.
And it rained probably, 4 hours ago? And the track is still soaking wet. Whereas when it was rained in Brazil, it dried within an hour, if that. So again, it's going to be a big factor. We usually, if it does rain, it dries fairly quickly, even at Silverstone. Whereas here, it's going to take a long time.
Regardless of whether you're trying to live on Japanese time or Las Vegas time or whatever time you choose, we've brought the schedule forward a little bit. That going to help a little? I mean, with the temperatures, I guess it will help a bit, but are those 2 hours going to really make that much of a difference?
I think it will make a difference to your body. Certainly, I seem to be sleeping better than the past 2 years we've been here, so I think that will help. But temperature, I feel that once that sun goes down, it kind of just continues to get colder every 30 minutes. So it only probably just affect the driver's sleep schedule, really.
So let's talk about Vegas iconic moments, not necessarily F1 moments. Anything that springs to mind when you think of Sin City?
Well, the first thing that springs to my mind, I don't know about you guys, was it Evel Knievel who did the jump that made him famous, really, over the Caesar's Palace
That was a long
fountain?
time ago, Harry. When was that?
67,
how old were you then?
67?
Sounds about right.
I don't like giving away my age, pal, but I think it was the landing that was pretty rough for old Evel Knievel, but it put him on the map. My iconic moment for Vegas.
That might have put you on the map too. Alice, anything that
I
springs
don't
to
really
mind?
have one.
What? Not even being with
I
us fine
think
people.
Formula One coming here, and producer Paddy's going to be like,
No,
you're
you can't-
so boring.
I poured out Evel Knievel. We need something better than that.
Well, I wasn't born in 1967 or whatever you just said. So
Over to Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew definitely was.
I think in a way this race is emblematic of how far Formula One's come in the last few years. You know, I'm old enough to remember the previous Las Vegas Grand Prix. It was called the Caesars Palace Grand Prix. It was
Wow,
running
you're showing your age there,
It was
Andy.
running a car park behind the casino, and on probably one of the worst tracks that Formula One's ever created. And because Bernie Ecclestone, who was the F1 impresario at the time, couldn't convince the casinos to run on the strip, which is what he wanted. Now here we are, and the Grand Prix runs down the strip because the casinos have all bought into what Formula One can bring to Las Vegas. This is it was, until Formula One came here, one of the least popular weekends to come to Las Vegas because it's the one before Thanksgiving, and yet in the last 2 years it's been one of their biggest weekends of the year. So I think that says everything about the status that Formula One has developed in the last few years.
Mine, if you're wondering, is the beginning of The Hangover. Love it. The chicken, the tiger, it's all going on.
Solid work.
Yeah,
Solid
we'll probably have a bit of that, I'm sure, this weekend. Well, let's bring it up to this weekend then and bring you up to speed with how the championship's looking. Lando Norris is the championship leader, and after a near perfect weekend in Brazil, he now has 390 points, 24 points ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri, with just 3 races remaining. Of course, 3 Grand Prix and 1 sprint to come in Qatar as well. And mathematically, Max Verstappen is still in it, but he trails Norris by 49 points. But I think there's only one place to start, and that is, of course, the dueling McLarens. It obviously hasn't got too argy-bargy between the two of them, but Lando has found his mojo right at the right time. He has peaked when it matters, but can he sustain that for the next 3 weekends, Harry?
I mean, it's going to be tough, but hearing from Lando speaking earlier in the press conference, he seems like he's firing on all cylinders. He's got really good energy around him. He's worked hard on his all-round performance on and off the track, and I think that's really showing. This track might be a little bit tougher for both McLarens in general, but when you look at the point swing, what Oscar Piastri had, was it 44-point advantage after Zandvoort? And now Lando Norris is 24 points ahead with 3 races and 1 sprint to go. It's a case of holding on, really, and scoring and continuing to score big points like he's already been doing. Because even if Oscar Piastri wins every single race until Abu Dhabi, Lando Norris can still finish second in all of them, and the title is his.
It's a weird way of looking at it, isn't it, as a driver? You almost think, will he therefore take less risk and sort of just come home, get to the checkered flag, take the points? Because if you know you don't have to win, you're not going to put yourself in any dodgy positions, are you?
No, I think you assess the risk if you need to make a manoeuvre or an overtake, but I think he just needs to continue to take it race by race. And since Zandvoort, he's been shining, and the momentum. He says, yeah, there's no momentum. I'm just taking it race by race. But you do when you start to get that run of form, and you look across the other side of the garage, and your teammate's not doing very well. You're like, well, sorry, mate, but I'm quite enjoying this. And Lando's doing everything right.
I'm going to bring in Abby Pulling, the reigning F1 Academy champion, who's just joined us. Thanks for coming in, Abby. I'm interested to get your take on this, because Lando Norris kind of feels like he could get the title now. Obviously, you were leading the championship in F1 Academy. How did you deal with those high-pressure moments when it really counted towards the sharp end of the season?
I'm really glad you explained what you're talking about, because I was completely not in the conversation.
No idea what we were talking about.
Deep in the socials.
No, I was looking at my questions for tomorrow. But
Prep is
prep,
key,
it was
I
all
guess.
prep. Yeah, I think being the one being chased is always the best position to be in. You want to be the one with the upper hand going into the end of the season. I was speaking to someone today about this. It's two different mindsets you have, being the chaser and being the chased. And it all of a sudden, every little point and every little overtake you do when you're leading, you think about it a bit more, you think about the risk involved, whereas when you're chasing, you take all the risks necessary. And you know, we've seen that from both drivers at times. I mean, especially Lando in Singapore, he took that risk into T3 at the race start to try and edge ahead. And I think this is the part of the season where you don't want to make mistakes. You want to make sure you're tidy, but also Oscar has to be beating Lando, so he's got to take them risks, and it could end up good, it could end up bad, but at least, you know, you can say that he's tried.
Well, let's hear from Lando Norris then, our current championship leader. He's saying he's taking it race by race. That served him well so far, but let's hear how his mindset is coming into the Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend.
Everyone knows my approach is still just one race at a time, and I'll treat it like that till the very end. So I'm enjoying the places I'm going. I'm enjoying the people I'm doing it with. I'm certainly enjoying every session, going out, and obviously always trying to win. It's always sweeter when you end up on the podium or you can win the race. It's always a better feeling, because that's what we all want. So it's been a good few races recently. And it is hard at times, I think, when you're fighting and you're in the position that we're in at the moment as a team, you know, between Oscar and myself, to sometimes like step back and realize what you're doing. You're so just in the moment, in the headspace of what can I do next time out? What can I do in practice, quali, the race, whatever. You don't often step back and go, I'm in Formula One, I'm fighting for the championship, I'm traveling the world. Like you forget those things sometimes, just because your mind is so buried in terms of what you're trying to achieve and trying to achieve it. So but the moments, you know, when you get reminded of it or you do take a step back, it's pretty insane, because I'm lucky to be here and even lucky to get to fight for the positions that we're fighting for.
So bringing it on to this weekend specifically, Vegas hasn't been very kind to McLaren the last couple of years. Are you confident that it'll go better this year?
Well, I have to be. Apparently, I'm not allowed to say we're not favourites anymore. So, I from the last 2 years, it's certainly been the hardest race of the year that we've had. So my expectations are not to the same level as Mexico, Brazil, where we've been performing very well for a good amount of years. But we've had an excellent year and we've improved in places that we've struggled in the past. So I'm certainly coming in with more confidence than in previous years. But not the same amount of confidence of going into the past few races that we've had. So you never know. Expectations are still high. I'm still coming here to win and to want to repeat, the last few weekends that I've had. But I think it's going to be trickier for sure than the last couple.
That was Lando Norris speaking in the press conference a little earlier on. And Harry, we were sitting next to each other in that conference. And Lando does have a very relaxed demeanour. He was very chatty, I thought, today, and was good at expressing how he's been dealing with the year as a whole, taking it race by race. But did you get a sense that was a guy under pressure? Because I didn't really.
No, I think it's quite ominous, actually. He seems so cool and calm, which is ironic because that's how we've been describing his teammate Oscar Piastri for the majority of the year, and even he commented on that and the difference in their character behind at the back of the garage. I just think that Lando seems to be operating at a new level now, and he's comfortable within the car. He's owned his mistakes early on in the season when he's struggled and been off the pace, whether that's just through his lack of comfort within the car and getting to the crux of a problem quicker than he has been. I think that's his main thing that he's adapted to and worked on at this stage of the season. So I would say he's sort of changed his driving style and trying to get to the crux of the problem, and that's really powered him ahead.
I also just think that his mindset is a lot better. Like, we always talked about last year of how he struggled, he was up against Max, and let's face it, Max doesn't care about anyone. You need to have that selfishness as a racing driver, and Max has got that. That's why he's one of the best racing drivers in the world. And I think Lando was maybe struggling a little bit at the start of the year, and again, this whisper of his mindset. But then comes Zandvoort, where it was looking tough for him. You know, Oscar was kind of fairly comfortable. He had a good lead in the championship. He could have easily let himself slip and make mistakes. But then since then, you know, he's been the top dog. He's been the one at the front, leading McLaren, leading them the way effectively. And I think you could be the best racing driver in the world, but if you've not got a very good mindset, you could be one of the worst.
A lot of people have been trying to press Norris on when that mindset shift happened, and a lot of people think it's Zandvoort, but he was saying, Andrew, in the press conference that actually it happened before Zandvoort, so almost that shift in mindset helped him navigate that DNF.
Yeah, I think
Zandvoort.
Yeah, he was alluding to, I think, a change that they made to the car in Canada, which I won't get too technical, but it was something in the suspension, because he'd been complaining through the first part of the season about not being able to feel the front of the car when he was going to the limit in qualifying. McLaren produced a tweak to the front suspension, which was available to both drivers, but Piastri, because he's had such a good start to the season, he decided not to take it, whereas Norris did. And it was only a subtle tweak, but his trajectory, his trend line since then, Norris has definitely been up. And I think it allowed him to explore more of himself in the car, take the car more closer to the limit, more comfortably than he was able to do before, without making the mistakes that he'd been making through the first part of the season. And I think he's been in a kind of virtuous cycle ever since. I think so. That's what he was referring to in that answer, I think.
Well, let's talk about Oscar Piastri then, because whilst it seems that everything is going Lando Norris's way, it's been the reverse, really, for Oscar Piastri, and yet he's still got a very calm demeanour. There's been no throwing the toys out of the pram. Yes, a few heated radio exchanges, perhaps, when he didn't agree with certain things the team were doing, but it's never bubbled over, so much so that in the media pen you get the sense that he's really annoyed with the situation. So how does he conduct himself in the next 3 races? This whole race-by-race approach that so many drivers talk about, I guess it has to be like that. But how does he fight back and fight back enough to overturn that points deficit?
He's got to outscore his teammate and hope that Lando makes a mistake. He can only control his actions on track. He can control his pace. Obviously, he's been influenced by car setup, but he has literally just got to go out there and perform at his absolute best, because at the moment that's all he can do. He's trailing him, Lando, in the championship. I'm actually quite surprised with how it's turned for Oscar, because, okay, going up the junior ranks, he was hugely successful. He won F3 in his first year. He won F2. It's a massive jump going into Formula One. Like, the pressure jump is huge, and he probably knows, well, this could be my only chance of winning a championship with the new rules coming in next year. Who knows where McLaren are going to be on the grid. And I was kind of surprised that he just seems to be making these mistakes. Like in Brazil, he made that mistake, went into the wall. Okay, there was some water on the track, but I'm just, I was kind of surprised, because he's always been extremely calm, and pressure, particularly, again, I've talked about the junior categories, he was under pressure massively at times, and everyone was like, he just doesn't crack. But he seems like the cracks have been starting to show.
I think Brazil was quite a telling race, because I actually think he was quite unlucky, Oscar Piastri, across the weekend. His pace had improved. He still wasn't able to beat Lando Norris for out-and-out pace. But with the water on the track in the sprint race, he was a bit unlucky there, because it kind of got kicked up by Lando Norris, who went into the left-hander before him. And then, of course, the 2 other spinners behind Oscar Piastri, he met the same fate. Piastri's got to be bold now with every single race because he is on the back foot. There's 3 rounds to go, and he's kind of in that position now where he hasn't got anything to lose. He can win everything and still lose at the end of this season. And that move on Kimi Antonelli into turn 1 in Sao Paulo was bold, and it was from quite a way back. He was obviously penalised for it, and I'm sure we can discuss about the ins and outs of that and the driver guidelines. And I think, on the whole, most of the paddock is in agreement that was pretty harsh and unfair. But it showcased that he is willing to put that car in a compromised position to get a better result. He would have finished P2 without a penalty. So, well, we'll see where Verstappen would have got in the end. But he would have been on for a podium. He now goes 5 races without a podium. Oscar's got to be bold now and make bold moves into turn 1 where others would not risk it. He has to now.
I think he needs to just qualify on pole, simple as that, easily. But that's what he has to do. He just needs to make sure that he is at the front of the field, and he can do it. He's got the capabilities of doing it. Look at the first half of this year. He was outstanding. But again, it comes down to mindset, and I think you can even tell when he's been in interviews, he's kind of been like lost at times, like, I don't know where the pace is. I have no idea. And then when a driver says that, you're like, yeah, you are lost. Something's going on, something's happening, and it's the worst feeling, not knowing where has my pace disappeared. Is it me? Is it the car?
I think it's going to be really interesting actually in about 6 months' time, because we're at the stage now where they're not going to really say what's actually going on behind the scenes. It's the way it works in Formula One. But we'll get into next year. This season will be behind us, and they'll start talking more openly about how this season has swung around, because it has been absolutely remarkable, hasn't it? You know, it's almost like a switch was flicked after that situation in Zandvoort when Piastri won and Norris retired. Apart from out qualifying Norris in Singapore, Piastri's not been quicker than Norris once since that race. 6 races Norris has been quicker, and even at the beginning of the year it wasn't as clear-cut as that in Piastri's favour. So I don't know what the answer is at the moment, and Piastri's not really saying. He's seeing each race as an individual scenario where Mexico and Austin were different, he was saying, because they've got technical explanations for why he was slow there, different from Singapore and Baku, where he kind of has admitted that the team orders thing in Monza affected his mentality, and then different again to Brazil. But the reality is he's just not been as quick, and Norris has been more consistently quick than Piastri was, than Norris in the first part of the year. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm really looking forward to hearing it when they're all willing to be a bit more open, because something has definitely happened.
So Lando Norris has stepped on and Oscar Piastri has taken a step back. So let's hear how the Australian driver is feeling ahead of this weekend. Is he going to be bold? Is he going to take risks?
We've certainly learned a lot from the last couple of years here in Vegas, and I think our car this year as well is just generally a bit more well-rounded. You know, I think certainly the first year we came to Vegas, our car was very good in certain conditions, which were not Vegas. Last year was a little bit difficult and kind of unexpected as well. But I think we learned quite a lot of things out of last year that hopefully we can put into good effect this year. So we'll see what we get. You know, again, we're not expecting it to be the best or you know the biggest advantage we've had all season, but I think if we can get the most out of the car, then we'll certainly be in good shape still.
That was Oscar Piastri, 24 points off his teammate Lando Norris. So the title battle is alive and well, and we're excited to see how it plays out over the course of this weekend. We'll talk a bit more about the race very shortly, but I know it's a little bit old, a little bit fish and chip wrappers, but I really want to get into the Ferrari and John Elkann comments, of course, the biggest boss at Ferrari, being very vocal after the Brazilian Grand Prix, saying that Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc need to focus on driving and talk less. I'll ask you guys what you think about this whole situation, but let's firstly hear from Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. I spoke to them a short while ago in the media pen.
I mean, John is very ambitious, and I think he wants the best, and that's the way he wanted to express it. But again, we've spoken, and that is the most important for me. Then, of course, everything that is around and the way the words are interpreted is not of my control, and I don't want to spend too much time on that. The most important is what he told us as a team, and how we can use that in order to be better as a team, and that's really our main priority.
You've always approached racing and teamwork with a we win and we lose together approach. How do you continue to work in an environment where your big boss, John Elkann, has now revealed that there is ultimately a blame culture at Ferrari?
That's a really, really good question. Trust you to throw that one at me. I mean, I don't feel like there's a blame culture here. I think, look, we're all in the same boat. Ultimately, we all have to take accountability and responsibility. Absolutely all of us, and every single one of us have to play our part. And as I was just saying just before, like, I firmly believe in the decision I made to come here. I back my team 100%, and I back myself still 100%. And whilst I know it hasn't been a good year for us, there have been so many learnings. And I think just for me personally, I feel like I've grown so much this year. I'm standing here stronger than I feel like I've ever been, and just dead set on trying to finish off strong in these last few races.
That was Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton reacting to my questions about the John Elkann comments a short while ago in the world of Formula One. Andrew, I know you've been talking to the Ferrari drivers as well. You've got a bit more time with them. What do you feel is the temperature at Ferrari at the moment? Because there's often management styles, isn't there? Carrot versus stick, encouragement versus sort of public, what would we call it? Flogging? No, what would we say?
Well, it's the typical Ferrari scenario, isn't it? And it was interesting. It was one of those press conferences where almost every question is about one subject, to the extent that by the time we got halfway through Charles Leclerc's press conference, which was second, the Ferrari PR woman said, "Have you got any questions about Las Vegas?" Anyway, I mean, so look, it took a while to get to the nub of it, but the key line for me out of Hamilton's responses was he said that this season had reminded him how resilient he was. And I asked him whether it was fair to say to him that he should focus more on driving. Could he focus more on driving? And he said, "No, not really. I wake up thinking about it, I go to sleep thinking about it, and I think about it when I'm sleeping. If anything, I have to focus on being able to unplug more. It's been a really heavy year." So they were fundamentally PR centred in the responses, but I thought that one particularly was quite revealing.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because in telling them to talk less, we're now asking them more, so they're talking more. And so there is a risk of sort of turning this into a never-ending spiral, Harry. But how did you always benefit at school from teachers? Was it the carrot or the stick that worked for you?
Neither. I just think it's I think they're incredibly unfair comments to make about one of the best duos on the grid. Yes, okay, they're not fighting for a world championship, but you cannot have a bad thing to say about Charles Leclerc this year. He stuck that car on pole. He's got 7 podiums in a car that's not capable of doing that consistently. Lewis Hamilton has joined a new team, and it's not just a new team, it's an institution, it's a culture. And I think if you have a problem with what your drivers are doing, you don't deliver it in a statement like that. You go and talk to them in the garage, you find them and you make that kind of a statement. I don't think you air that. And I know Ferrari have this whole culture about them, but I think that is inherently the issue that they cannot address, because Lewis Hamilton doesn't need to prove anything. He's the greatest of all time, one of, considered by many. Next year is a whole nother question of how that pans out. But if anything, it's Ferrari that need to prove to their drivers that they are the team to be with and take them to world championship success. Charles Leclerc is currently barren with a title and has been looking at falling downhill as that Ferrari progresses. It's not good. So as far as I'm concerned, it's Ferrari that need to up their form as a team rather than looking at the drivers.
It was strange that John Elkann felt he needed to say it in public, because both drivers have said today they have a really good relationship with him. They talk to him regularly. Why don't you just say it behind closed doors? Why feel you have to put it out there?
Well, to be fair, Leclerc said that Elkann had rung him and told him he was going to say this stuff. Now, whether
that's daft.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
That's twisted.
Well, he said that he repeated that thing about good relationship. He understood that it was a positive, intended to be positive. how it came across. Leclerc said he couldn't control, obviously, but I mean, look, it's worth saying that at the end of this press conference and throughout all of them, really, they were both talking about how much they believed in the team. Hamilton said, I back this team 100%, I back myself 100%. I know that when we get things right, it's going to be amazing, and I can't wait for that moment because I'd love to see what you're going to write after that. And of course, that's the point, isn't it? If Lewis Hamilton does succeed in winning the World Championship with Ferrari, it's going to be one of the most amazing stories Formula One's ever seen, and that's why there was so much attention on him at the beginning of the year, and that's why this season itself has been so difficult for them all to deal with, because the pressure and expectation was so high, and they just haven't delivered as a team. But to blame the drivers, even though Hamilton's had a difficult year, and he'd had a difficult race in Brazil, to blame the drivers, I think most people in this paddock feel that was an unfair and wrong thing to do.
It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back this weekend then, because I do think they're one of the contenders to be on the podium here in Vegas. We've spoken about McLaren, obviously more about the title fight. People think they won't be so strong, and I think McLaren themselves don't rate their chances that highly of being right out front this weekend. So let's talk about who we think might challenge for the win this weekend, or even pole position. Harry, who are you thinking?
Well, I think if we're to believe the rumours and the chat from everybody in the paddock, it's Mercedes who look like they're in pretty prime condition to be the contenders here. George Russell, of course, taking the win last time out. The colder temperatures, are they going to go the way of Mercedes? Ferrari have good form here. It's interesting, I think George Russell said that he would rate Red Bull above McLaren this weekend, which I found fascinating. Of course, Red Bull is really a one-car team, so it's Max Verstappen, and you rate him at every single race. So that's going to be the intriguing bit. But I think Mercedes could be certainly the biggest contender, and Russell is looking for a bit of a bounce back, because I actually think Kimi Antonelli's on a rich reign of form right now, so he might be one to watch.
I'm uncertain about Mercedes. I know that is kind of the gossip in the paddock, that they're going to be the ones to beat this weekend. But this year, they've tried to get a car that performs better at all circuits, and therefore outliers like Vegas might not suit them as well as they've done in the past. So could it actually not be their strongest anymore?
Well, it's a fair point, and I think that there have been periods this year where they've confused themselves as to how their competitiveness has been. They're expected to be quicker and then were slower, expected to be slower and then were quicker. But the reason people think they'll be quick here is because it's very similar to the other two tracks where they've won, so Canada and Singapore. Short duration, slow corners, and big brakings into them. Less so big brakings in Singapore, but and also low grip surfaces. All those things line up across the three tracks, and so that's why people think Russell's going into it as the favourite.
Abby pulling on the mic.
Just to back up that theory, I agree with the Mercedes.
We don't do that here. We don't back up Benny's theories.
But
you can come back again, Abby.
Mercedes, they perform really well in Montreal, and Montreal is a very similar circuit in the sense of it's cold, it's got the long straights, so keeping the tyre temp is really hard, and they had pole. I think George Werner and Kimi got his first podium, so I think it's theirs to lose.
Anyone else that could get in the mix? And maybe if this rain does appear, is that going to give us a mixed up grid, do you think? Is it going to be treacherous out there? I mean, some of the drivers were saying, I think Fernando Alonso said in the press conference, it'll be fun to watch, but not fun to drive if it's wet.
It looks slippy. It looks so slippy. And like when we were driving down the strip, because we were lucky to do that the other day, I was actually taking a good look of like the lines on the track, the painted lines. And there's so many different types of painted lines, which probably thinking, well, just painted lines. But trust me, when they're not the proper paint that goes on Silverstone or Monza, where it has a bit of grit in it, no, these lines will be slippy. And yeah, I agree with Alonso. It will not be fun for the drivers if it is wet.
What will that feel like in the car? What's the difference? You feel the tyre just...
Like driving on ice.
Like ice,
basically. Yeah, and I know it's cold, but we're not expecting ice. But it will just not feel nice. And the colder it is, the harder it is to generate that tyre temperature as well.
if we ignore the weather and the potential rain, it is still possible to overtake here. So if we had some big scalps in qualifying, people could still make their way through the field and find themselves in some big points paying positions.
Absolutely, and it's a sort of race where you get sort of topsy-turvy grids even if it's not raining. So last year Pierre Gasly in the Alpine was really competitive, for example. So if someone can get that, it's all about tyre temperature here because of the cold conditions that we're talking about and the lack of grip from the surface. So if one team can get their tyres working in the absolute optimum window, and that could be any team, you could end up with a surprise result.
I want to ask you for your podium predictions, your winner predictions, but I feel everyone's unanimous in a Mercedes
Antonelli.
victory. Okay, Antonelli.
I said that earlier.
Because I knew that's what you were going to say, so I wanted to say it
because I
first.
think Antonelli stepped up in the last few races. So I genuinely think he could be on for a maiden victory.
Ooh. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, one of the Mercedes drivers, and he has been on form. Yeah, so I think, but don't rule out Max Verstappen.
I was going to say, I'm going to go for Max Verstappen.
George Russell was saying, let's not forget that when Verstappen was doing his sort of fight back in the championship, it was all on this kind of circuit, high speed, long straights, big braking zones into corners, and Red Bull really turned their car around on this sort of circuit configuration. So, and he doesn't like street circuits, Max Verstappen, but he's brilliant wherever he goes. So, yeah, don't rule him out.
No, at your peril. Abby, come on, who have you got for the race winner this weekend?
I think if it rains, it's anyone's game. But for sure, if it's dry, Mercedes, you guys have said. Antonelli, he did well in Miami. Miami's a street circuit, so maybe the street circuit will pay in his dividends as well. Who knows?
So if it's anyone's game, would Sauber win if it rains?
You never know. You just never know. Hulkenberg for the win.
Well, join us to find out. Guys, thank you so much for helping me look ahead to the Las Vegas Grand Prix. We're done for now, but there's lots more F1 action coming your way on the 5 Live network over the course of the weekend. We'll have all sessions on Sports Extra with the race on 5 Live. Lights go out at 4 a.m. Hopefully you'll set your alarm clock and join us for that. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.